Who exactly holds the keys to TD Bank? It's a question that might cross your mind when you see those familiar green signs dotting the landscape, especially if you're a customer, an investor, or simply curious about the financial world. It's not as straightforward as saying one person or one company. Instead, the ownership of a major publicly traded bank like TD Bank is distributed amongst a vast number of shareholders. Think of it like a giant jigsaw puzzle, where each piece represents a share of the company. No single entity typically holds a majority of these pieces in a large, publicly listed corporation. Instead, ownership is spread across institutional investors, like mutual funds, pension funds, and insurance companies, as well as individual investors like you and me. So, while there isn't one definitive owner in the traditional sense, we can look at the major players who hold significant portions of TD Bank stock. These large institutional investors wield considerable influence due to the sheer volume of shares they control. For instance, a massive pension fund managing retirement savings for millions of people might hold a substantial stake in TD Bank, making them a significant shareholder. Similarly, large mutual fund companies that pool money from numerous investors to buy a diversified portfolio of stocks often hold a considerable number of TD Bank shares. It's important to understand that these major shareholders aren't necessarily involved in the day-to-day operations of the bank. They don't decide on interest rates or approve loan applications. Their influence primarily comes from their voting rights as shareholders. They get to vote on important matters such as the election of the board of directors, executive compensation, and significant corporate decisions. This collective power of shareholders ensures a degree of accountability and oversight for the bank's management. The landscape of major shareholders can also shift over time as investors buy and sell their shares. Investment strategies change, market conditions fluctuate, and as a result, the composition of top shareholders in TD Bank today might look slightly different than it did a few years ago, and it will likely evolve in the future. If you're interested in getting a more precise snapshot of who the current major shareholders are, you can usually find this information in the bank's regulatory filings. Publicly traded companies like TD Bank are required to disclose significant ownership stakes to regulatory bodies. These filings, often available on government websites dedicated to financial regulation or the bank's investor relations page, provide a detailed breakdown of the individuals and institutions holding the largest blocks of shares. However, even when you look at these lists, remember that it's still a distribution of ownership. There isn't one single individual or entity calling all the shots. The ownership structure of TD Bank reflects the nature of a large, publicly traded corporation in a globalized financial system. It's a collective ownership that drives the bank forward, influenced by the decisions of countless investors, big and small. So, to circle back to our initial question, who owns TD Bank now? The answer is a diverse group of shareholders, primarily composed of large institutional investors and numerous individual investors, none of whom hold a controlling majority. Their collective ownership and voting rights shape the governance and direction of this major financial institution. With that said, thanks for watching, and until next time.